The Flushing girl from Flushing, the nanny named Fran.
Oh, Mr. Sheffield.
Miss Fine.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Oh, Mr. Sheffield, a podcast where we rewatch The Nanny, which is a hit sitcom from the 90s starring Fran Drescher. I am Jean Di Pasquale, here with
Toria Sheffield.
That's right. And this week, we are back for season 5, episode 13, Call Me Fran. This one, guess what, Toria? Directed by, are you ready for it? Fran Drescher.
Yep. I mean,
Yep.
I knew it. I talk a little about it in trivia.
Yep.
It's so cool.
Very exciting. Directed by Fran and written by Diane Wilk, who's written a bunch of episodes that we have enjoyed in the past. Toria, what is this one about?
So this is the episode where Fran finds out that her father does not like Mr. Sheffield, which causes her to reevaluate her entire relationship with men. And I really like episodes like this because it was very funny, but it felt very grounded. I was like, oh yeah, of course Morty doesn't like Mr. Sheffield. And of course that's why. And I was like, this feels real to me. You know, it doesn't feel like that fabricated, this week she wants to be a weather girl. And I think that's to me, these are almost the best kind of episodes because what's happening, the emotional motivations of everybody makes sense. And it also kind of moves their emotional arcs further in a real way.
Totally agree. I loved this episode, and we get the benefit of a fantastic B plot that's just the whole purpose of it is to make fun of Brighton and make him the butt of the joke. And honestly, it's great. He plays it so well. It's very, very funny. The payoff is good at the end. We get some amazing Sylvia lines in this episode. This is a great episode. So
yeah.
So we open, we actually, the first thing we open with is a setup of that B story.
Well, yeah. Well, no, the first thing is Fran comes down the stairs and she's in jeans and a sweater. And and she actually looks great. She's wearing just very normal clothes. And Niles comments on it, and she's like, "Oh, it's my father's birthday, and I'm going to take him to a basketball game." And he kind of likes women to dress more conservatively. But I'm like, wow, I wish she dressed like this a lot. She looks great and everything. But this is also then where we get that little introduction of the B plot where Brighton and Maggie come in and. Maggie's like, remember, the sorority party's at 8, so don't be late, blah, blah, blah. And he runs off excitedly, and it turns out it's just a bring a geek. It's a bring a geek party, which I think was a real thing, where people would invite the geekiest guy they knew to a party and not tell them. And
I wish that was a real thing. I would have gotten invited to so many more parties.
You're yeah, and I think the person who brought the biggest geek was the winner of the night, which this is so cruel. They cannot possibly do this anymore. I think
also it's jokes on you assholes. The whole world's obsessed with computers and fucking superheroes now. So who's the geek now?
Yeah, I mean, if anything, it should
what would this even be now?
It should be bring an eligible geek to our party because they're going to be my money ticket to if I can get one of these guys.
Yeah. Although they aren't necessarily a guarantee for the least emotionally abusive.
Okay. So I feel if you're not really as probably geeky as we are, you wouldn't even know that it's often the least emotionally intelligent but arrogant guys you could find.
Yeah, there's a lot of geek incel crossover too. The waters get murky. The waters get murky.
Yeah. But so anyway, we established that bring a geek to a party thing is happening, and then the doorbell rings, and Fran's super excited. She's like, "Ooh, it's my dad!" And she answers it, and it's Sylvia. And Fran's like, "Ma, where's Dad? It's it's his birthday. It's a special night." And she's like, "Oh, your father, he's not feeling well. He ate a bunch of sausages," which is dog food, by the way. He ate a bunch of sausages and he couldn't come. And Fran is very understandably disappointed, but Sylvia's like, no, I'm going to go with you. This is going to be great. I'm dying to go to a basketball game. And then she's like, I've somehow not gone for 50 years, meaning she's clearly not dying to go. And then we cut to the basketball game. Man, what a sign of the times. A guy
Oh my
pinches
God,
Fran's butt.
dude. Like, what a sign of the times, because it's not ever mentioned again. It's literally only played for a joke. It's played so much as a joke that, like, other than being like, that guy's a pig, they basically don't do anything about it. And like the guy, because I had to rewind it, I like looked, I guess I was taking a note or something, and then I look up and I hear her go, and I'm like, what? And I rewind it. The guy literally like is cheering, and Fran's cheering. Then he nudges his friend, points at Fran, and goes like, watch this. And then he like puts his fingers out, but like not like a pinch. He like sticks a finger out like he's gonna stick it in her butt. And then she goes like, whoa.
She even said, she was like, oh, if I was wearing a skirt, he would have taken my temperature.
Yeah, dude. What?
Yeah. I mean, but it's a sad reality of and I think even in some
Boo.
areas still, yeah, you could pinch a girl's butt, and the most you could do is be like, "Hey, screw you," and then just keep walking. Like
let me get on a soapbox for just one moment here,
okay.
Because it's messed. Yes, you're right. There are still places where that can happen, and the best you can do is go, "You pig," get out of here, and that's fucked up. And I feel like because. And it's not the nanny's fault, right? But like, because this is what media was for so long, this is the message that was sent out for so long. It's like, yeah, no wonder people don't think there's anything wrong with it, or think that like you're being too sensitive if you mention it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, because there's reams and reams of film from movies and television going back years and years. Like the start of the movement of, hey, maybe don't do this kind of stuff to people, like, is so minute in comparison with how much longer this has been okay, all the way into the 90s, man.
Yeah.
It's so messed up.
So yeah, guy pinches Fran's butt. That's just a little jokey. And then while they're watching the game, it is revealed by Sylvia that Morty really isn't sick. Although he really did eat the sausages, he just isn't sick. And Fran's like, well, why didn't he want to come? Like, she's like very like hurt. And Sylvia like kind of takes her hand and she's like, oh, because I forgot to mention earlier that these tickets, these like, great tickets to this game, were given to Fran by Mr. Sheffield and like purchased by Mr. Sheffield for her and Morty to go. Sylvia's like, he didn't want to take anything that Mr. Sheffield gave him. And she's like, the thing is, it breaks your father's heart to see you wasting your life on a guy who's never going to marry you. And I was just like,
so rude.
Yeah, no, but this felt so realistic to me. Like,
sure, yeah.
That, and you know what? It could be that,
rude.
Well, that he's not going to accept the gift.
I mean, the whole thing, like Morty's whole view of Fran and like what the dynamic is there is like very condescending to Fran.
No, it absolutely is. But for example, I grew up in a, I'm thinking of like the side of my family from New York, Jewish. My grandparents, they only had 6 granddaughters. There's only 6 of us. There's 6 of us and we're all girls. So I've seen these dynamics play out, and regardless of if it's right or wrong or enlightened or not enlightened, it is very real to be like, that guy's wasting my daughter's time. Like, and then a lot of resentment brews. And it comes from the moms too. And I'm not saying this is every family, and I'm not defending it, but it felt very real to me that, and like, there has definitely been situations in my family where like people are like refusing to accept things from, like, they won't, like, the guy involved because they're displeased with how their daughter is being treated. And sometimes it comes down to like, my daughter is better than that and worth more than that. And that's why they're mad. It's not like, I don't think of course it's like,
sure.
It is condescending in that like, I don't trust my daughter to be making the best decisions for herself. But it comes down to like an anger that your daughter's not, being valued the way you believe she should be valued. So it's like very, it's all these things are like complicated with like, yes, sexism. And I think you're right. Like, infantilizing women, but then also like, no, but I just want the best for my kid. But it's like, I was like, wow, I could 100% see like my grandpa pulling this shit. But that being said, in the next scene, the kids are sitting at the kitchen table and Fran comes in and she's like super depressed. And the kids are like, Fran, like, what is it? Can we help? And she's like, oh no, kids, it's a grown-up problem. You wouldn't understand. And then she goes, my daddy doesn't like me. And she runs into she like kind of like mopes into the next room. And Gracie's like, I'll take this one. She picks up a piece of cake off the table and goes into the other room and she gives it to Fran. And she's like, talk to me, sweetie. And Gracie, Gracie's so freaking big. Were you thinking that like she has shot up?
Huge growth spurt. Yeah, huge growth spurt. Crazy. Like she got so big.
She's so tall, and she's just clearly so much. She's just older, you know. And
she's like a tween. I mean, she's a tween at this point.
And the thing is, the two older siblings, they already kind of did that growth spurt, so they haven't really been changing that much. But she is at that prime time where it's like you blink, and she's like a foot taller, and is so much more adult. But so she's sitting down next to Fran, and she's like, like Fran, like, why, you're a grown woman. Why do you even care what your father thinks of you? And then she's also like, and what would Dr. Miller say to you? Which kind of like, I think rightfully nudges Fran towards going to talk about this with her therapist. And also Fran's like, what's wrong with this picture? And Gracie's like, that you're the adult and I'm the child. And she's like, no, you didn't bring me a fork while she's eating that cake. But yeah. But then we cut to Fran at Dr. Miller's office, and she's clearly just sort of dropped in on him.
It's ridiculous that this is happening in his office. Like, it's so stupid.
Well,
it's like, I was like, why is he getting acupuncture in the middle of his office? And then he agrees to help her, but doesn't put a shirt on.
Well, here's the thing. The acupuncture part totally happens. Like there's a lot of like successful people who literally have their like hairstylist come to them, their acupuncturist come to them, their massage person come to them. Like that wasn't the part that made me be like, huh? But the fact that he's like, all right, we'll just do my session. But it was kind of a funny beat though, because his acupuncturist is also very invested in the situation with Fran and Mr. Sheffield. And so it's like the three of them are discussing it. But so he's got all these needles in his back. And, at one point, Fran's like, where were we? And the acupuncturist is like, you were talking about your relationship with your father. And also Fran's like, sorry to drop in on you. Thank you so much for like taking the time to talk to me. And Mr. Dr. Miller's like, it's okay. I mean, your usual appointment doesn't entail me getting drilled by nails, but it feels oddly familiar. And basically, Dr. Miller tells Fran that, she's clearly seeking out distant men because her father is a distant man. And that's what she's comfortable with. And Fran's like, oh my God, light bulb moment. We then cut back to the mansion. There's like a super silly scene where Cece pranks Niles, like he's asleep on the couch, and she makes it look like he was like smoking one of Mr. Sheffield's cigars and drinking his liquor. So then when Mr. Sheffield comes in, he's like, Niles. And when Niles realizes what she did, he like goes over to her and he's like, at the risk of sounding like the doctor who delivered you, this could get ugly. Which I thought was a very funny line.
Yes.
But then Fran charges back into the mansion and she tells Mr. Sheffield like she needs to talk to him. And she's like, I realize, I am chasing you because you're exactly like my father. You keep me at arm's length. And then he literally pushes his arm out to keep her at arm's length. And he's like, that's not true. And he's like, oh, come on, Miss Fine. And she's like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Like we've known each other for 5 years and you still call me Miss Fine. And she's like, I've been chasing unavailable men my whole life. And there's only one solution. You've got to change. And then she marches out, which is obviously funny because like, no, the solution isn't that like other people have to change. It's like you have to change, but she's not there yet. And then in the next scene, it's like a day later.
Is this where she comes? Is this the scene where she comes down wearing the feather jacket over the 70s go-go dress and the white boots?
I think that's the last
Or is that
scene.
the next one?
That was the
Oh.
previous scene where she comes in.
That was the previous scene. Okay.
That
Outfit was so awesome, dude.
I know.
I loved it so much. Like everything about it. I was like, God, this looks so cool. And like it would still work today because it's got that retro kind of feel to it. It's genuinely great.
And here's the thing about Fran Drescher / Fran Fine. Like, if I wore that outfit, the outfit would wear me. Like, I wouldn't wear the outfit. Like, you know that old phrase where it's like, you wear the outfit doesn't wear you, meaning like,
sure.
You can get, like, you can just like get overwhelmed by a bold style and it clearly doesn't look right on you because you're not wearing it with confidence. Fran wears the outfits. Like, they do not wear her.
Yeah,
and it doesn't matter. It does not matter how bold they are. Like, she's owning it. And she then, preach. And then
she ate it all. No crumbs.
She has her foot on our necks.
Oh my God.
That's what they say now. Like 12-year-olds are like, wow, like Mr.
Christ.
No, it's so, or like you have.
I prefer the she ate or no crumbs. She left no crumbs. She ate so much. She left no crumbs. I think that's so funny. But we digress.
So then now we're in the next scene. Fran's in the kitchen with Val and Gracie, and Fran's complaining about the whole situation with Mr. Sheffield and her father. And Gracie's like, well, you clearly just need to reestablish the boundaries of the relationship with Daddy. Like, you are just the nanny from now on, which was great advice. But then we had that weird joke that I thought actually kind of didn't work, where then Gracie's like, oh, I've got cookies in the oven. And she goes and takes them out. And Val's like, she's so independent. She's just making cookies for herself. Like, all women should be like that. But then Brighton comes down the stairs and he's like, Gracie, I said chocolate chip, not oatmeal raisin. And then he leaves and she goes, I guess I can't do anything right. It was like very out of character. It just didn't make any sense for the joke. But then Fran takes Gracie's advice and she goes into Mr. Sheffield's office and she tries to establish firm boundaries by setting like set hours and saying, I'm going on a break. But then we have this great moment where she marches out and Mr. Sheffield is like exasperated as always. And he's like, oh, Niles, like, what do I even do? I don't even know what she wants. And Niles goes, may I speak freely, sir? And he's like, yes, of course, old man, thinking that Niles is going to like say something like that is on like his side, like Team Mr. Sheffield. But then Niles just goes friggin' berserk. He like starts basically shaking Mr. Sheffield by the shoulders. And he's like, I can't live like this anymore. Niles, what should I do? Niles, what does she want? He's like, for God's sake, marry the woman. And then he's like, you passed on cats. Do you want to regret this for the rest of your life too? And then he like runs out.
It's a very funny line.
It was just great. Yeah. He's friggin' had it. Yeah. And then we in the next scene, we have a great scene at Sylvia's place where Fran's now at Sylvia's talking about everything that's going on. And I always love when Sylvia is in like mother mode where she's not just played for jokes, but also is giving some real advice. And she does this, of course, while eating a small rotisserie chicken with her hands. But she also says, your father, he loved you and he did the best he could. He just had trouble showing it. And then she's like, children tend to idealize their parents when they're growing up and they don't realize that, under that veneer, we're not sophisticated people, which I thought is very vulnerable and true. Like, we're not, superheroes who know everything and do everything right. We're just as messed up as everybody else. Yeah. And she's like, your father won't change. If you want something different, you need to change. Which, maybe some people now, I think actually that is pretty accurate. I mean, maybe some people would be like, well, you need to have these honest conversations. But, when someone's 75 or whatever, realistically, it's like, you need to change your mindset out of what you're going to get from them realistically and how you feel about that. Not like,
yeah, of course. You're not going to change your dad.
Yeah.
Your 75-year-old father. Hell no. You got to figure out what your relationship with them is. I mean, I know someone who has a lot of relationship issues with people in their family, and they definitely need to, their biggest issue though is that they have to get to the point where they accept that these people are never going to change. That like there's nothing you can do. You can't do them favors, you can't be extra nice, or there's nothing you can do that will change the way they are. So you have to change your expectations of them, and otherwise you're going to get hurt over and over and over again.
And like understand it's not personal, but it's like it's their limits, as you know. It's they can do what they can do, and then
they're broken in their own way. Like you know, they can't love you the way you love them, or whatever it is. They can't be there for you the way you want them to be. But that's not because of something you did.
Yeah, and sometimes I think TV and media also creates unrealistic expectations. Like you grow up watching these families where like at the end of 30 minutes or 22 minutes, everything gets wrapped up and everybody apologizes and everything's great. Like you're like, oh yeah, that's what a perfect family should be. But it's like, no family's like that. Everyone's like screaming, not apologizing, then just like, let's go for ice cream.
This is a great, this scene with Sylvia is there's so much good stuff. I can't wait to get to favorite lines and moments. There's so much in this scene. I love it.
But then Fran's like, you're right. Like, people aren't going to change. I have to change. I'm quitting. And then she like leaves. And somebody's like, what? No, I didn't mean that. And then Livia, we have this really the goofy beat where Fran's running across New York City and Sylvia is chasing her all the way back to the mansion. So then Fran bursts in and she's like, Mr. Sheffield, like, she's basically like, I quit. Like, I have realized, like,
Sylvia screams, I'm going to cut my tongue out.
Yeah.
And then they get into the house and she screams, I'll kill that shrink bastard.
Yeah, I'll kill that shrink bastard. Such a great line. Such a great line. And the thing is, but Fran's like, I have realized, Mr. Sheffield, like by the way, once they get to the house, Fran's like, everybody leave. I need to talk to Mr. Sheffield in private. And Sylvia's like, I am not leaving this room. But then Niles is like, why don't we go wait in the kitchen? And then Sylvia's like, okay. So they go into the kitchen where she's clearly going to be eating. But this is when Fran's like, I realize like I've been waiting 5 years for you to realize what you want. And that's never going to happen. So I have to change this situation, which by the way, I think is incredibly healthy. And I think she really was committed to doing it in the moment. And she's like, I'm leaving. And then he's like, no, wait, Miss Fine. And then he's like, Fran. And that stopped her like dead in her tracks. And he's like, Fran, please don't go. And that kind of melts her heart a little. And I think, while it's obviously not the huge commitment she's looking for, it is showing some growth on his part. And so she kind of like turns around and they hug. And she's like, are you going to start calling me Fran all the time now? And he's like, well, not in front of the children. And she's like, what about in front of Niles and Cece? And he's like, well, that wouldn't be very professional. And then she's about to leave again when he's like, Fran, please. And then they kiss and they melt into each other and it's kind of all resolved. And that's enough for her, at least. That's enough for now.
And I will say, I've already watched the next episode, so I know the answer to this. But in my notes, initially, I wrote, this is cool. Will it stick or will it be forgotten by the beginning of the next episode? And I won't spoil that here. You'll have to tune into the next episode of Oh, Mr. Sheffield to find out.
And also find out the big winner of our Honda giveaway. No.
Just kidding. You're all winners. Check under your seat right now. There's everyone's getting a car.
You have been sitting on a Honda this entire time. Oh, Sean, your coughing ruined my joke. I'll keep the cough. I usually cut our coughing and throat clearing out, but I'll keep it in for that. I'm too selfish. But so then, and then the Brighton. That is a combination of me trying to say the button with Brighton. The button.
President Biden?
President Biden.
Dark Brandon?
So the button is super funny. Brighton comes down the stairs looking like a friggin' idiot. He is in the dumbest outfit, thinking he looks cool as hell. He's dressed sort of like a Morgan Freeman from the 90s. And he's like, Fran, like I'm going to the party that Maggie invited me to. And then she's like, wait, sweetheart, I gotta tell you, this is a bring a geek party. That's the only reason you got invited. And he's like, oh yeah, I know. I'm going to meet, but he's like, but I don't care because I'm going to go meet girls. And he's like, that's why I'm wearing my cool clothes. And the way he says, that's why I'm wearing my cool clothes was so funny and so well delivered. And then he does this dumb little dance to show like how he's going to like wow all the girls at this party. And then she's like, okay, oh, well, good. And she's like, but sweetie, if I were you, I work in the words trust fund right up front in the conversation. And I'm like, oh, sweet Fran, like you are trying to work. You're trying to do what's best
help
for him. She is. And she even said, she's like, I can't let you go in good conscience without telling you that. And I do like how like she does this thing that I think a lot of people do, which I actually love, which is you're kind of on everybody's team, even when you're undermining somebody else's team. So it's like, she like is totally letting Maggie tell her that it's a bring a geek party and she sort of laughs with her, but she's not going to not go clue Brighton into that,
No, she's not an abusive parental figure. That would be abusive.
And I think she would know that like, if Maggie's like, I can't believe you told him, she'd be like, honey, like, that wasn't right.
I don't want to go to jail for abuse. Can't gang up on a child.
But so that is the episode.
It was a good one. And now you know what it's time for. It's time for segments. And now segments.
So, segments.
Yeah, no, I think we should move on to segments.
To say we can move on to our segments.
And now, segments.
Segments. What's Sean in for you?
Beep, 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 beep. I love it.
Love it.
Jazzes me up every time. I'm ready for the second half of the show. Favorite lines and moments.
I loved, at risk of sounding like the doctor who delivered you, this could get ugly.
That is so good that I might try to use it in real life at some point.
I know. It's so good.
So good.
So hard.
Okay. God, I liked so many things. First of all, I just want to call out the fact that Gracie is disappointed that Fran is unable to rent Secrets and Lies from the video store.
Oh my God. And then I really enjoyed that Fran wanted to rent Operation Dumbo Drop. That was my favorite.
It's just so funny because Secrets and Lies is like, it is not a movie for children. It's like it's like Mike Leigh directed it. What's really funny about it is like Fran was like totally going to rent this movie for this little child. And then a second later calls her a little girl. Is like, you're a little girl. I also like that Gracie says, Fran, you're a grown woman. You're over 5 feet tall.
Yes. She knows she has to protect Fran's fragile ego as well.
She was going to say over 30.
Yep.
Yeah. I like the welcome back Cotter line. It was funny
too.
Was that? He says, I'm going to run a Rorschach test on you. And she goes, oh, you mean the guy from Welcome Back Cotter?
Yes. I did love I'll Kill That Shrink Bastard. Shrieked by Sylvia. Literally shrieked. I also like when Sylvia says she's going to the gym and Fran's like, good for you, Ma. And Sylvia's like, this is my second time. I went once to sign up and I'm going to renew today. Meaning it's been a year.
Yeah. I also like the chocolate hidden in the challah bread being referred to as a Jewish piñata.
Oh my God. Yes. I love that. Also, don't you think it's very funny that there's like a lot of reference to Sylvia and Morty's kink life?
Always. Yeah.
like I love it. I'm like, it's just such a like, I also kind of wonder if like Fran Drescher grew up knowing that her parents were like getting it on a lot or something. But
I think a lot of healthy Jewish parents of that generation had like a secret hidden kink.
Wow. I would not know. I don't even have a memory of my parents even being married. they,
Oh, I'm
they
sorry.
divorced. They divorced when I was too young.
Oh,
I remember
that's
when
sad.
saying that to my sister. I was like, "Oh my god, the idea of them like even touching is weird. Like even like being in a couple like doesn't make sense to me." They're just two people who somehow had two children together. But also, I just love the genuine moments when Sylvia is giving real mom
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah.
I think it's such an important part of her character, and it does work really well when it happens.
Mhm.
Then any others?
No, that's it from me. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Sean jumps out a window. For Yiddish, we got Genug again, which means enough.
Genug.
And then for nanny trivia, it's short but sweet. But you
Okay.
know, Sean said earlier, Fran Drescher directed this episode. She's directed 2 episodes of The Nanny overall. And I went down a little rabbit hole with her with some interviews. And in one interview, she actually mentioned that she has sort of a secret dream of directing an independent movie someday. And this was not too long ago. This wasn't like 20 years ago. This was, I think, within like the last 5 or 6 years. So that would be really interesting if it's something that ever happens.
Sure. Yeah. Why not?
And you know, I think that'd be cool. And she probably doesn't have anything on her, any bandwidth on her plate with like the Broadway show and all that. But yeah, I think that's interesting when people continue to be creative and continue to want to kind of keep growing creatively. Because there's a lot of people in this industry specifically, you know, they make tons of money, say being on a sitcom, and then they just like live in our mansion and, you know, chill forever.
Or just hang out.
Then, okay. So the Fran or the Cece, who do you feel like you were?
I guess
I can go first if that helps, but I have an answer.
You know? All right, go ahead. Who do you think?
So I felt like I was Fran to the letter, and only
Why?
in that I think I'm very
Do
good
you
at
have daddy issues?
Oh no, my father was perfect, Sean. But no. My actual thing is I'm very good at recognizing my own patterns, like toxic patterns, but not changing. Like I'm very self-aware that, oh yeah, I do this and it's probably because of that, but it doesn't lead to change. Yeah. That's the harder part.
Well, I mean, I would have to say that I think I'm Brighton in this episode. Only without the trust fund. I'm just like, I really related to like being a very like excited loser, happy to get included in anything, even if it's at the, like, I liked that Brighton was smart enough to know he was being fucked with, but didn't care because he just wanted to be around people. That really hit home for me.
And it's probably like, oh yeah, I'm obviously only invited to this fight because it's some prank, but I'm going to make the most of it.
Whatever. Yeah, exactly. That's a great mentality to have, you know, so to keep you happy in life.
All right. And so that is an episode for us. We would love to hear your thoughts about it. I was thinking about this recently. Yeah. If you listen to this every week and you have still not reviewed it on Apple Podcasts,
oh my God, what's happening?
This is my big plea of what's the month? June 2023. No, it's just it helps so much, and we know that we do have regular listeners. You know, every week, just by the numbers, we know that. So it's so helpful. And I'll say this: we're a small podcast. Like we're not like the one that everybody has heard about. So
we don't even have a distributor. We're like, it's not like we're like signed with anyone. We don't like the ads that we get through like Spotify for podcasters, which just like serve you up random ads. Like, so it would be awesome to get this out to more people and have more listeners, especially as we get near our end.
Yeah, like because we're a little, and you think of us like we're not a large corporation. We're a small family-owned business, and like this stuff really does help us. So that's
we're independent cinema, baby. Yeah, and then I put on sunglasses and I fly to the moon.
We're not big, we're little, and so that the reason that we ask every week is because it does make a really big difference. So,
I want to just say, first of all, We're everywhere now. So if you're listening on Stitcher, or if you're listening on Amazon, or if you're listening on Spotify or Google or Apple or whatever else places, leave a thing. Thumbs up. We love it. Share it. It would be great. It would really help spread the word about the show. And everyone tweet at your favorite nanny actor, actress, or writer, and tell them to come be on the show, and we'll interview them. We would love that as well. I was thinking about that. The way that we could extend this show after we watched all the episodes is we could just, whenever we're able to, and we get someone, we'll do like an additional episode where we interview somebody. That would be so cool.
Yeah, that's so true. But you're right. Like if the fans also do sort of a social media campaign, like say to Fran
people reach out to people. Hey, come be on any of the actors, except for the actress that played Gracie. Leave her alone. She's very kind and nice, and she's a listener. But she's not interested. She doesn't want to do the show. She doesn't really like to talk about the nanny, and we're going to respect her wishes on that. That's fine.
For sure.
Don't
That's
bother.
smart.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, everyone, thank you so much for listening. We so appreciate it. What?
Oh, Mr. Chef Pod on Instagram and Twitter. And also you can email us at ohmrsheffieldpodcast@gmail.com. And guess what, Toria? People are still doing it. This week we got, hey guys, from Catherine. She says she is in Melbourne, Australia. And that she loves listening to our podcast while she is trying to fall asleep or delivering catalogs at her job. And also that she wants to thank us for giving her like aspects of the thoughts about the show that she's really never thought about before. She's very much looking forward to listening to the final episode where maybe we'll be dressed as Sylvia and Yetta.
Oh my gosh. Firstly, thank you, Catherine. Secondly, Catherine, I was just in Melbourne a few weeks ago, and hopefully this does not happen. But if you end up in an ER in Melbourne and you have a Dr. Sheffield, that's my sister. That's my sister. So be on the lookout. Hopefully it does not happen.
Oh, Dr. Sheffield.
But that's so awesome.
That's pretty cool. All right. And on that note, Toria.
Goodbye.
The Flushing girl from Flushing, the nanny named Fran.
Oh, Mr. Sheffield.
Miss Fine.